deals with that Celesteela very, very comfortably, and maybe this is the time for it to really show what it can do.
All right, so let's get into it. Our final match of Swiss here in Vancouver. Zac Emerzian and Demitrios Kaguras. Demitrios will be on, or Dimitri will be on the top of your screen with the Palkia Whimsicott lead, and then Zac having Solgaleo Grimmsnarl on the bottom of your screen.
I can't believe we didn't even get to talk about Solgaleo.
He is also an Ultra Beast, technically.
Yeah, not one of the traditional ones going on there. But the Solgaleo is a fun little innovation that's been going on.
Just so if anyone cannot hear, I'm sure you can, the ships are out to sea currently as we're in round 7.
The ships are having a good time on this one, but back to the game. Solgaleo is a cool innovation. I think players have been doing really well with it. It did quite well in Salt Lake as well, under the guide of Aaron Zeng, actually, at that one. So players really keen to make sure that one works. And Palkia's been kind of my up-and-coming star for a little while now, being able to show off what it can do. It's such an easy choice, right? As you just Dynamax it and then go from there.
Especially because Whimsicott is such a great utility Pokemon with Prankster. A Prankster Tailwind, one of the issues with Palkia is it's somewhat middling speed tier. With so many of those other restricted Pokemon, they're really all in the same tier. So if you Tailwind, you'd be a lot faster. In this turn, he decides not to Tailwind, though, because he doesn't maybe need it right away.
Tailwind not required.
Yes, but the Helping Hand instead will be able to help out the Palkia, and a Protect Light Screen from Zac's end here. So no damage, just going to try to be safe. Set up that light screen for the next 5 to 8 turns, depending on what held item the Grimmsnarl has. And then Max Geyser into Grimmsnarl! Ooh. Light screen OP because Grimmsnarl hangs on with 10 HP.
Yeah, that's a really good, I mean, it's a good turn for both players, right? Zac shows just how strong light screen is going to be by being able to take that hit with an absolute smidgen of health, but that's all you need to be afforded another turn to set up a Reflect when you're, of course, using that Prankster ability. I mean, that was also with Helping Hand as well. Right. So Helping Hand wasn't even enough to punch through, but a really good turn for Demitrios, right? Where he manages to land that attack into the Grimmsnarl, doesn't fall for the Protect, which would have been a massive, massive wasted turn here. So really good for both trainers. And Zac, yeah, now that Solgaleo is safe, being able to fire back with a Dynamax of its own.
Yeah, Solgaleo is going to Dynamax on this turn for Zac, so you will have a one-turn stagger of Dynamax where Demitrios' Palkia will end its turn, or end its Dynamax, and then Zac will still have one more turn for the Solgaleo there. Energy Ball is the reveal, though, from Whimsicott. Doesn't matter because he just needed some damage from the Grimmsnarl there. I'm pretty sure that means Grimmsnarl also went for an attack, right? Because he was not using Prankster that turn, so Zac got punished for that because he didn't use Prankster. He didn't have the priority over the Whimsicott. Gets knocked out. Max Quake will give Solgaleo a special defense boost, so that will help. But this is a Max Geyser in the rain. It is counteracted by Light Screen and the Max Quake boost, though, so it does not do too much.
Yeah, this Solgaleo has been set up really nicely. I do think that Zac maybe missed a trick there. Letting that Grimmsnarl go down for free could come back to haunt him, especially if something like this Zacian comes in to try and round out the game. You know, that Reflect would have been really, really important to get set up. But the Solgaleo is showing, you know, really making a commitment right now to special defense boosts, right? You've just got that special defense set up behind the light screen. I think even the Calyrex may be able to start looking at taking extra attacks. But, you know, the fire back of the Max Quake, yeah, decent damage to the Palkia, but not really threatening a knockout, and that's where I'd start getting a little bit concerned. I know that Demitrios, you know, does still have options with this Whimsicott. A late Tailwind, later than turn 1 is what I mean by late Tailwind, could be really impactful when it comes to setting up for something in the back. I still think Zacian is going to be very, very fast and threatening, but, you know, a Tailwind here, I mean, the Calyrex has to be careful. Yes, there's a light screen up, but it's still notoriously frail, and that's something I'd be curious to see. The one thing Demitrios definitely would need to reveal right now would be something like the Fake Tears if he has it, because this defense setting up from Zac's side of the field is starting to hurt and starting to slow him down quite a lot.
I do like you mentioned of Tailwind, though, like saving it for turn 3 here, because a lot of times it feels like you kind of wasted Tailwind, and by the middle turns of the game, you actually would really like it. But the Bulldoze from the Calyrex will target everybody, including the weakness policy Solgaleo, which is what we actually seen. What we've seen previously when we've had Solgaleo on stream in previous events. You want that weakness policy. You cannot get your speed dropped because of your ability, so you just get the benefit of your attack boosts there. Critical hit into Kaguras actually does half to it, gets a special defense drop as well. But we saw the Demitrios max guarded, and so he wasted Solgaleo's second turn to Dynamax, but now Palkia doesn't have that extra HP.
This Whimsicott's on an absolute mad one, by the way. Not tailwinding, throwing out the energy ball to try and lower that special defense, I guess, is probably the best way through it. It might need to tailwind now, though, right? The Palkia is going to get knocked out if it gets hit, so it just needs to get that damage down, and maybe there's a world where Palkia can attack that Calyrex now the special defense is dropped, so it's a little bit easier to get at behind the light screen. But the big concern now is, you know, that Solgaleo managed to set up itself, you know, after the bulldozer a little bit. Just, I don't know about this one. I think the Solgaleo could run away with it in this final turn of Dynamax.
Yeah, you have to worry. I mean, I don't know if he wants to click Max Quake again, because if the biggest threat in the back is Zacian, then you want to get a Steel Spike boost to your defense as well. But here is the Tailwind finally. Turn 4 Tailwind, where Whimsicott's been on the field the entire time. You don't really see that. Spatial Rend goes into the Protect on from Calyrex, though, and Max Mindstorm into Palkia is enough to knock it out. That's the best option on this turn because he wanted to ensure the KO onto Palkia. Something like Max Steel Spike, even with the +2 attack from weakness policy, it's still resisted to Palkia. So it would have been nice to get the defense boost, but sometimes you have to just guarantee a KO.
Well, there's also a really cool secondary effect that this one can play out, right? Like, Demitrios hasn't pivoted off his lead, right? So there is definitely that threat of the Incineroar in the back. Now, you know, of course, that your Dynamax is going to be up this turn for Solgaleo, so why not set up to just avoid that obvious, like, Incineroar comes in and fakes you out play, which is really annoying to deal with, because I just think that's something you get the knockout. That's super nice to confirm, and you get to just not worry about that in the following few turns as well. So nicely put together there. And it actually kind of works out for the Solgaleo, right? Is the Solgaleo now isn't Dynamax, isn't in the face of just being able to get caught by this Zacian. So maybe Demitrios playing a little bit slow for my taste. You know, finally set up the Tailwind. But does the Zacian really need it? Probably not. The thing is, though, this Zacian is going to be asked to do so much work because there's just the light screen up. This is the Pokemon you have to look at as your sweep as Pokemon at the end, essentially.
Zacian will protect on this turn, actually, so maybe Demitrios trying to bait out, see if Calyrex has a Will-O-Wisp on one of its supportive moves. But another attack from Whimsicott, because he can't do anything else because of the Psychic Terrain there, stopping his Prankster attacks. Astral Barrage will connect onto Whimsicott, not even enough to knock it out, as this Sunsteel Strike goes in to Zacian's Protect there. So Zacian, it would be a neutral hit, and with the weakness policy boost, it would be pretty strong. Yeah,
that would have been very, very threatening. And the big question for me is, how does Demitrios deal with this Solgaleo, right? Like, where is the answer to Solgaleo right now? I'm just not seeing it, especially when your Whimsicott is just locked in energy balling things. That's not the damage you need to do. I mean, at that point, Energy Ball the Calyrex. It did more damage last time. It did way more than it does.
You got a crit and a special defense drop.
Yeah, now the special defense drop is there. Take advantage of it with your Energy Ball.
Yeah, I mean, the Astral Barrage also does make sense from Zac because it is a spread attack, so you get the buff there. But the Helping Hand into Zacian will help with Sacred Sword on Solgaleo.
There we go.
That's what is the Helping Hand boost is going to help Demitrios here in this matchup because you got rid of the Solgaleo, who was actually such a menace in this match. Whimsicott knocked out. Zacian actually not even brought down to half from the Astral Barrage, but now the Calyrex gets a Grimnay boost to its special attack. It can be doing a lot more damage.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, that's nice to see that there is that clear answer to the Solgaleo, right? Yeah, it's not the easiest choice to make, but you got to know those numbers, and I think Demitrios feeling confident in that play. Concern right now is what happens when Tailwind expires, right? And what are the last Pokemon for both of these trainers? Very kind of defensive here, I guess, from Demitrios in the Indeedee, and that Rotom Heat was selected, so that is going to cause some problems for the Zacian if it can't easily knock it out. Of course, the Indeedee also has options to just Helping Hand or buy time with the Follow Me, and I think that's going to be the key to victory here, but Follow Me doesn't really play so well when the Calyrex is throwing out spread attacks. The Calyrex doesn't care, by the way, about hitting the Indeedee. It just cares about hitting the Zacian right now.
Right, and, you know, the Rotom, Zacian is going to need to click Sacred Sword into Rotom because either Behemoth Blade or Play Rough would be resisted because he's a fire type. So here is the Sacred Sword. It's the neutral. It's the best option for Demitrios, and the actual expanding force from Indeedee because of psychic terrain. The spread attack doesn't do a lot of damage there. Rotom instead with Dark Pulse into Indeedee, super effective. That's probably like a 4 or 5 hit KO. So you're gonna need something better than Dark Pulse to take down Indeedee female.
I think it's 4. Looking at the numbers, I'm pretty sure it's 4 at this point. That did 52 damage. So yeah, 3 would get you to 156. But obviously there's a little bit of wiggle room depending on the amount of damage done. But yeah, that's going to be a 4-hit knockout with Dark Pulse. In my opinion, not the play that you want to be going for. Like, that Rotom was free there to hit the Zacian. And maybe being a little bit too respectful of the follow me, locking into that Dark Pulse. Yeah, the Zacian got away with it there and is now going to be able to pick up a knockout wherever it wants. Of course, does have to be a little bit cautious because that Tailwind's not in play. And if this Zacian draws attention this turn, this could get really bad for Zac.
Indeedee and Zacian both protecting on this turn for Demitrios, so no damage going to be coming off from either of these trainers. I just want to see what did Rotom do, because it's not going to matter, but what did he target? He targeted the Dark Pulse again, so that's now 2 turns in a row that Zac has valued the Dark Pulse. The light screen does wear off at this point. It wouldn't really matter too much, but like Rotom keeps going for Indeedee instead of maybe an overheat or Thunderbolt into the Zacian slot. Too worried about the redirection.
Now you have to be respectful of it as the Zacian goes for another Protect here. Does want to make sure it can get through as the Astral Barrage, of course, won't connect with Indeedee. The Zacian just not being afforded the opportunity to protect in this one as Astral Barrage, is going to get the knockout. And I think, you needed to find a way to knock out this Calyrex with the Grenade boost once again going for it. The Tailwind there, I mean, this could have been a lot easier if Zac was just able to get through the Tailwind earlier, but yeah, Indeedee taking a huge amount of damage. I think one more should be able to do it, but you need this Indeedee to try and get there in this one.
Rotom hangs on at 7, so Rotom is able to get another Dark Pulse off. I don't know what Calyrex's item is, if it's choice lock because it's just clicked Astral Barrage the whole time. But now we're actually going to see that it is not. In fact, it is Pollen Puff being revealed on the Calyrex there. Because I was going to say, it would have gotten a little hairy if Rotom went down there, because if you're choice locked into Astral Barrage, you can't hit Indeedee. Yeah,
it's a good job he wasn't choice locked, because otherwise he would have been absolutely doomed. But a really close endgame from both of these players. I think both trainers sort of stalled to a point that they felt more comfortable, and then for Demitrios, like, the Tailwind ran out, and that was a huge loss, right? Because then at that point you're staring down this Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is faster than your Zacian. It has a Grenade boost and is going to be able to knock you out. So maybe playing a little bit too defensive. I'm not sure about that double protect turn. The other thing that you lost was, the Max Mindstorm set up the Psychic terrain, not the arrival of Indeedee. So that once that terrain ran out, Expanding Force became single target again. And that is where you started to lose out. I mean, even single target, right? It wasn't being boosted. It didn't get the knockout on Rotom, which was a huge problem. So it sort of feels like Demitrios maybe played it a little bit too safe there at the end. And just Zac had the Pokemon available. The Dark Pulse wasn't really feeling great, right? Like, the Dark Pulse didn't feel super strong as far as it goes, but in the end, it got there and got the damage done, because the Calyrex was just waiting to Astral Barrage and pick up that Zacian.
I do think it is funny that at the beginning of the game we mentioned how a lot of times if you Tailwind too early on turn 1, it runs out before you can really, need it for later in the match. And this time, like, whether it's turn 4 or turn 8, like it was in this case when it ran out, it was just like the one turn too early that it ran out. If you had one more turn of Tailwind where Zacian was faster than Calyrex Shadow Rider, it might have turned out differently. So the Whimsicott actually was pretty strong with Tailwind. It got a crit on Energy Ball. It claimed a KO on a 10 HP Pokemon. It put in its weight.
Yeah, the Whimsicott put in the work, but I think there is a world where you just need a more explosive start, right? If you're Demitrios here, you just Tailwind, start taking a knockout, and maybe something like the Zacian a little bit earlier would be preferred. Don't let that Solgaleo set up, or just don't let the Grim. I mean, the Grimmsnarl only got one turn off anyway. It only managed to light screen and then went for an attack in the following turn. But you just think, well, was going after that Grimsnarl, not worth it at all. And maybe, you know, you could spread the damage around a little bit. Like, the light screen went up, and Demitrios just didn't really deal with that. Like, the light screen was still the important bit. So maybe just getting some damage down would be more important. Or potentially just bringing some spread options for damage, right? Like, having a physical and a special attacker makes that decision a little bit harder for Zac. And maybe making a bit of a mistake when it comes to which one you pick.
The other one that's really standing out to me, like a glaring standout, is Celesteela absolutely walls Solgaleo. It's a psychic steel type. So, of course, you'd have to worry around Rotom Heat if that were the adjustment. But it's something that could be we could look towards here in this matchup. Same lead for Demitrios with Whimsicott Palkia, just like game one. And you're going to switch it up on Zac's and Tapu Fini and Grimmsnarl.
I really quite like that, actually, from Zac. I mean, that's a real commitment to just defeating this Palkia early doors, right? And that's sort of saying that, I guess it's calling Demitrios' bluff, is Demitrios knows this is his best lead. Like, on paper, this is just the best lead he has. And if he's going to commit to it again and think he can play around this game differently, then why not just punish him with the addition of Tapu Fini?
Right, and with two fairy types, obviously, Palkia is very concerned. You can't ever try to click max Wormwind or anything because your damage would be reduced on normal targets, but of course 0 on the two fairies. So the light screen from the Grimmsnarl will actually help out against this Energy Ball. Energy Ball will target down the Grimmsnarl, and then Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Fini doesn't hit Palkia, does bring Whimsicott down really low thanks to a crit. It's probably holding the sash anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
another turn, though, where this Whimsicott is just like, I need to buy some time. I'm going to throw out an Energy Ball. And, I mean, it's not doing huge damage, but it does start to add up. And maybe softening things up with the special defense is where Demitrios' mind is, right? Is like, well, I need to deal with this basically by virtue of lowering your special defense and just winning through that way.
Yeah, I think that the Tapu Fini is a really cool adjustment from Zac, because a lot of times you think the player who loses is the one that needs to make the adjustment. But Zac showing in this spot that, you know, Demitrios led the same thing he had in game one. He thought that was his best option. And Zac feeling like with Tapu Fini, it's like, no, I need to make an adjustment because he's like on my tails now. I can't just do the same thing and expect the same outcome.
It's a tough one, right? And like, yes, landing that Energy Ball now means there is a potential for this Grimmsnarl to just get knocked out immediately by the Max Geyser. But then the Max Geyser, I mean, not really the most important. The Max Geyser does set up for Tapu Fini a little bit, right? Like, if it does decide to start scolding things later in the game. But Whimsicott, yeah, you just Tailwind here and attack. But then what do you knock out? Because you don't deal with the Tapu Fini.
So remember, Helping Hand Max Geyser behind Light Screen put Grimmsnarl down to 10 HP. Oh, he actually gadgeted the Tapu Fini slot there. So my point is irrelevant at this point, but what I was saying was he did not Helping Hand this turn. He Tailwinded, so even if he targeted Grimmsnarl, it would not have been enough to knock out without the Helping Hand there. So Whimsicott goes down. Now he can't even Helping Hand next turn because Whimsicott has been knocked out. And the super effective Spirit Break from Grimmsnarl will not only bring Palkia low, but also lower his special attack. I'm
saying, like, one more turn of this, and this Palkia is approaching near useless, right? Like, it's going to get real tough for this Palkia if you're thinking, like, oh, it can just go and sweep the game in its 3 Dynamax turns, which at the top of the day I said I love Palkia, and I think if you can capitalize on the Dynamax turns, you win. But the problem is like, you've just used a turn to Geyser into the Tapu Fini, right? And that is unequivocally a bad use of one of your 3 Dynamax turns.
Yeah, I'm also not sure what this, like, even if Fini was switching out, like, well, it wouldn't be into Rotom because Rotom wouldn't come in against Palkia. So, like, what were you trying to max Geyser in that slot for? But regardless, Grimmsnarl will reflect, and now the Behemoth Blade from Zacian will do less damage. Neutral attack into Fini, but not enough. Grimmsnarl MVP helping out the squad. Max Geyser with the rain boost from Palkia into Grimmsnarl, and it's not enough. Like we said, Helping Hand brought him to 10 HP last time in game 1. So without Helping Hand, we knew it was not going to KO without a crit. But the Palkia does get KO'd by Tapu Fini's Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, this Palkia finally just getting worn down. And the Palkia in the face of, I'm going to say, in the face of 2 fairies to Dynamax it is audacious at best. You know, you are just relying on being able to get that damage down and push on through with the Geyser at this point. But I mean, like, Geyser wasn't going to get the knockout on Tapu Fini, and if you remember your calculation from game number 1, you must know that that Geyser isn't going to get the knockout onto the Grimmsnarl without the helping hand. Like, it came close with the helping hand, and you didn't even have it. Like, yeah, you were relying on the energy ball damage, but you got to think that you aren't going to get there without that buff.
It's just so interesting because it's Tapu Fini Grimmsnarl. It's Spirit Break Dazzling Gleam that took down your Dynamax Pokemon. It's not like it was Solgaleo popped off or Calyrex popped off and got a huge knockout. It was 2 supportive fairy types that took it down. So the Behemoth Blade from Zacian will take care of Grimmsnarl, and now Expanding Force will be, single target onto Tapu Fini. Not like it matters too much because any amount would be enough to take it down. So Zac is down to his final 2 Pokemon here, and then Demitrios down to his last 2 as well with the Indeedee female and Zacian.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, right, it's like Zac used 2 supportive Pokemon to get a knockout, including one of the restricteds, right? Which is huge, and depending on what his back pairing is right now, he also did that without using his Dynamax, which is a really big factor.
And he can Bulldoze again.
Yeah, he just has his restricted pairing available. Obviously he needs to get through the end of the Tailwind. I was concerned about it potentially being the Rotom caught in the rain, and I'm really glad it's not. The Rotom was what gave way for the Tapu Fini, but what deals with this Solgaleo, right? Like, the Solgaleo can just get set up, the Bulldoze can come through, and then, as soon as that, Tailwind is over, the Tailwind's done, right? Like, it's over, and Calyrex is just going to start Astral Barraging stuff.
Right, and you don't, one, you have to care about Indeedee because it has Follow Me, but, in theory, all it does is have a Psychic Attack into Solgaleo, so he doesn't care, about any damage Indeedee is going to output. Double Protect, though, from Zac on this turn, so the Follow Me would have redirected anything, but not this turn. If I'm guessing correctly, that means Tailwind is ending on this turn, so that's what the Double Protect was for. Now Calyrex is faster, and he can go for the Bulldoze play.
Yeah, the Tailwind was, I think you have to just consider it over, right? Because you can just Double Protect. It doesn't matter. You have no Dynamax, you have no way to try and work around this Protect. And Zac is just like, hey, here's my restricted pair, your Tailwind's gone, yeah, I still have my Dynamax.
So at least Indeedee, in fairness, Indeedee will redirect, I'm presuming, a max Mind Storm because of Psychic Terrain. It would, or a max Steel Spike if that is what Solgaleo goes for. It is +2, so it's not like Indeedee's going to take it well, but this does give the Zacian 1 free turn of not being targeted. Yeah,
to Behemoth Blade it and see what it can do, but then at that point, as soon as the Indeedee goes down, it's just Astral Barrages all day, every day into this Zacian, and once they become single target, they're going to be a problem. Solgaleo, yeah, even just targeting the Indeedee with the max Steel Spike, this Zacian's job just became even harder, and yeah, this one's locked up.
Well, obviously, if you're Zac, you got to be ecstatic at this point. Just play it out, and you're going to be moving on to Top Cut tomorrow. So, Zacian with Behemoth Blade into the Calyrex slot there. Not even enough, thanks to, remember, the Reflect has been up for the last few turns, thanks to Grimmsnarl earlier. So, that is one of the aspects of VGC we kind of forget when Pokemon are out of sight, out of mind. But remember, Grimmsnarl set up Light Screen and Reflect in this match?
Grimmsnarl set up Light Screen, set up Reflect, landed a Spirit Break on the Palkia, dropping its special attack and doing huge damage. The Tapu Fini cleaned up with Dazzling Gleam. Honestly, this restricted pair is cool, but it's kind of been taking a back seat. I'd say the work done in game number 2 by the non-restricted pairing was way more impressive as Solgaleo just locks this one up with a max Steel Spike. Even after winning, right, Zac made some changes. Demitrios didn't, and he's been punished so hard for it in this game number 2.
Congratulations to Zac Emerzian for winning round 7 here in Vancouver, and he will be 6-1 moving on to Top